Okay, so this is just general questions for all of you guys, and you can answer individually. I'll pass the mic down. So, how long did it take you to memorize your lines?
Well, Mr. Farley kind of sectioned it off by acts, so we would have to have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 memorized by a certain deadline, and he'd give us about 2 weeks to memorize each, and that would be the deadline. And some of us would have most of them memorized, but we had a little trouble with some of them. But for the main part, we got them all down within those 2-week deadlines.
Like Mariah said, it was split up into little groups and sections, but I, for one of the people, I struggled a bit with sometimes. But we managed.
Well, it took me the whole 12 weeks we did this to memorize it. That is all.
Yeah, it was just sectioned off, so it was easy to focus on one thing and make that very strong. And then the next week it's like, oh, we're going to jump to a whole new thing. And then it's like, oh, wait, but like I remembered everything else. And it's just like, it got a little hectic sometimes, but like we obviously did a great job. We all.
So, what was your favorite part about like completing the entire thing? What was your favorite part about the entire production?
My favorite part is always the curtain call, because it feels really good to have an audience have that reaction. And even like during the production, when you make a funny joke or you say something clever and the audience like chuckles a little, it makes you feel good knowing that you're making that impact on the audience and you're getting that reaction. That means you're doing what you were meant to do.
Not only am I really happy with how the audience reacted, that's one part that I also really like, but I also really love the new friendships we make throughout this whole production.
We become a family here. As soon as we start, we don't know each other, and then after, we're just one big loving family.
No, we're all a very dysfunctional theater family. But no, as a performer, that feeling when you walk off the stage after your scene and you go to turn your mic off, knowing that you did such an amazing job and the audience, their laughter and their reactions, it just feeds you and it just gives you so much energy. Like, that's just empowering.
All right, so each of you individually, how do you personally deal with the nerves before the show?
Well, I don't usually get a lot of nerves like during the show, but sometimes before the show you can get a little stressed. And the important thing is you have to take some time away from everyone else, away from all the commotion. I like to sit by myself kind of in a quiet room, take deep breaths, maybe run a few lines in my head, but you don't want to try to drill too much, because I always think if you drill something too much, you're going to be so stressed you're going to forget it anyways. So the important thing is just to calm yourself. And then once I get on stage, the rest kind of just comes out of my mouth and it's like butter.
And to help calm my nerves, I hum sometimes. I just hum a song and it actually helps. Or if I leave the room and just start singing randomly, it takes my mind off of it.
It's funny because today was one of the most stressful days in acting history. So I went into the bathroom by myself and I just started singing, even though I sound like a walrus. But I just started singing and it made me feel so much better.
Individually, what helped me is like writing down all my lines, so that just got in my head, so that was really easy for me to memorize. And so for me it was just like really quick. Jake and I during Prides, we would go over his lines. He has them on his phone and he just like listens to them over and over and over again.
All right, what was the most difficult part about preparing for the production?
Lines. Especially cues, because I feel, especially for Mrs. Savage, she doesn't really have too many lines that play off of people. There are a good decent amount of lines that can easily play off of people, but she also just says really random things.
I think the hardest part was, for me, it was kind of channeling my Titus, because like you have to be someone totally different. Like, as some of you might disagree, I'm like one of the happiest people, and then to be like really angry and stern and proper, like it kind of like caught me off guard, but that was a hard thing for me.
It's the total opposite of me. I wasn't even acting as Lily Bell. No, it's like just some of the harder things. I guess lines for some of them, some cues, and there were instances where it's just like certain people aren't pulling their weight. And Jake and I, we were student directors for this, so it was kind of our job to enforce that before Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Farley. So it was just kind of like a little bit stressful, plus with having a bunch of other clubs activities going on. It's just lots of stress and just trying to manage that and just not try to like ruin a freshman's life by screaming at them. And so it's just like, no, but in the end, again, it's just like, it worked out, and I'm very, very proud of everybody in this cast.
What was your favorite part of the production?
I would say the favorite part of my production is just working with all the actors and getting to see two different casts perform it in two different ways. It's always fun to have, different perspectives on how people characterize their characters, and it's awesome being able to have each of the casts really feed off of each other, so that was awesome to see as a director.
How much time was put into practice and rehearsals?
A lot of time was put into practice and rehearsals. We met at least 4 days a week, and we spent 2.5 hours after school each of those 4 days. So it's around 10 hours a week extra for the students and Mrs. Kelly and I, so it's a lot of time.
What was the most difficult part about preparing for the production?
I think getting everybody used to being old. I think one of the biggest things that, as a director that you have to get used to is with a teenage cast is you don't have the life experiences to play an older person. So I think the hardest part for most young actors is portraying somebody that is so much older than they are.